The air was razor-sharp, biting through even the thickest winter gear. It was early December, and the vast wilderness of Denali National Park lay buried under 3 feet of fresh snow. The temperature had plummeted to 90 degrees Fahrenheit, turning the landscape into a silent, frozen expanse where even the toughest creatures sought shelter. Most bears should have been deep in hibernation, nestled safely in their dens, their slow heartbeats barely a whisper beneath the icy ground. But that morning, Park Ranger Jack Reynolds saw something that made his breath catch in his throat. Peering through his binoculars, he spotted movement in the distance, something massive, dark, and struggling. His pulse quickened. It was a grizzly. At first, he thought it must be a trick of the light, a shadow shifting in the snowy haze. But then he saw it again. A huge bear, easily over 800 pounds, was dragging itself across the frozen ground. Its fur was streaked with crimson, a stark contrast against the pristine white snow. A trail of blood followed behind, marking its agonizing journey through the brutal cold. Jack had spent over 20 years patrolling these lands, and he had seen his fair share of injured animals. But something about this bear was different. Wild animals, when hurt, typically retreat into the depths of the forest, finding a hidden place to either heal or succumb to their wounds. They never head toward humans. Yet this bear, with each painful step, was making its way toward the ranger station. Jack's grip tightened around his radio. His voice was steady, but there was an edge to it as he called for backup. "Emily," he said, addressing his fellow ranger, "I need you out here, now. There's a grizzly, and it's coming straight for us." Silence. Then, a crackling response. "What?" Emily's voice was laced with confusion. "Did you say a grizzly is coming toward us?" "Yes," Jack confirmed, his heart pounding. "And I don't think it's a coincidence." This was no ordinary bear. This was just the beginning. Jack Reynolds didn't take his eyes off the approaching bear as he gripped the radio tighter. Every instinct in his body told him this was wrong. This wasn't how things were supposed to happen. Bears avoided humans, especially when wounded. And yet, this massive grizzly, bleeding and struggling, was deliberately making its way toward them. Emily Carter arrived within minutes, her truck kicking up a cloud of snow as she pulled into the ranger station. Stepping out, she adjusted her heavy parka and joined Jack, raising her binoculars. "Oh my God," she whispered. "It's still moving." Jack nodded grimly. "It hasn't stopped since I spotted it. I don't think it's just wandering. I think it knows exactly where it's going." Emily's gut twisted. They needed backup. She grabbed her radio. "Dispatch. This is Carter. We've got an injured grizzly approaching the station. It's behaving strangely. We need wildlife experts and medical support immediately." The line crackled. Then a voice responded. "Copy that. Stand by." Within an hour, help was on the way. An unprecedented gathering. Word of the bizarre event spread fast. In less than 2 hours, wildlife officials, park veterinarians, and conservationists arrived, their vehicles forming a small convoy cutting through the icy roads. Among them was Dr. Lisa Morgan, a bear biologist with over 15 years of experience. She had spent her career studying grizzlies, but when she received the urgent call, she knew this wasn't just any bear sighting. This was something unprecedented. As soon as she stepped out of her vehicle, she was handed a pair of binoculars. "Tell me this isn't happening," she muttered as she focused in on the bear. But it was. The grizzly was still moving, its massive body shuddering from exhaustion. Blood stained the snow behind it, and yet there was something in its eyes, a look of determination, as if it understood exactly where it needed to go. Lisa's hands trembled as she reached for her radio. "In all my years," she said, her voice tight with disbelief, "I've never seen a bear do this. It knows we're here. It's not afraid. It's seeking us out." Her words sent chills through the team. Dr. Samuel Turner, the chief park veterinarian, was already pulling out his medical kit. He had treated hundreds of wild animals before, but treating a fully grown, conscious grizzly in the open was beyond risky. "We need to act fast," he said, glancing at the rangers. "If this bear collapses before it reaches us, it might not get up again." The final approach. The grizzly was now only 200 yards away. The team stayed in position, watching as it trudged forward, its massive paws sinking into the snow. Despite the pain it was clearly in, it made no aggressive movements, no warning growls, no defensive posturing. Instead, when it finally reached the outer edge of the ranger station's clearing, it did something no one expected. It stopped. For the first time, the bear stood still, lifting its head slightly as if taking in the scene before it. The humans, the vehicles, the faint hum of radio chatter. Then, slowly, deliberately, it lowered itself onto its belly, breathing heavily. It was waiting. A stunned silence filled the air. Dr. Morgan swallowed hard. I don't believe this." Jack exhaled, shaking his head in disbelief. "Neither do I." Whatever was happening, this bear had just made one thing abundantly clear. It wasn't here by accident, it had come for help. The bear lay in the snow, its massive chest rising and falling with labored breaths. Its fur, once thick and golden brown, was now streaked with crimson, the deep gashes across its body a silent testament to its suffering. The team of rangers, veterinarians, and wildlife experts stood frozen, not in fear, but in awe. No bear had ever done this before. Dr. Samuel Turner, the chief park veterinarian, was the first to move. He snapped on his medical gloves, his breath visible in the freezing air. "We don't have much time. If this bear came all this way for help, we can't let it die now." Jack Reynolds nodded, gripping his tranquilizer rifle. "Agreed. But we can't assume it's completely docile. Even in this condition, one wrong move and it could kill someone instantly." Dr. Lisa Morgan, the bear biologist, stepped closer, her trained eyes scanning the animal's body. "It's weak, but aware," she murmured. "And it's watching us." Sure enough, the bear's dark amber eyes were locked onto them, not with fear or aggression, but with an eerie sense of understanding. It wasn't flinching, wasn't growling. It was waiting. But that didn't mean it wasn't dangerous. The risk of a lifetime. The team had only one chance to sedate the bear properly. If they underdosed it, it could become agitated and attack. If they overdosed it, they could kill it. A full-grown grizzly was an apex predator, even in its weakest state. Dr. Turner carefully loaded the tranquilizer dart, adjusting the dosage for an animal of this size. "This should put it under in 5 minutes," he said. "I need a clear shot." Jack and Emily took position, rifles in hand, not to harm the bear, but as a last resort if something went wrong. Turner exhaled, steadied his aim, and pulled the trigger. Thwip! The dart struck the bear's thick hide near its shoulder. The animal flinched, but didn't roar, didn't lunge. Instead, it blinked slowly as if it understood what was happening. The team watched in tense silence as the tranquilizer took effect. The bear's heavy body sagged, its breathing slowing. Finally, after 3 agonizing minutes, its head lowered into the snow. It was asleep. A collective breath of relief filled the air. "Let's move," Turner ordered. "We need to stabilize it before the sedation wears off." A shocking discovery. As the team rushed forward, they got their first close look at the bear's injuries. And what they saw made their blood run cold. The deep wounds weren't from another bear. They weren't from a fall or a bad hunt. They were from illegal hunting traps. Dr. Morgan's heart clenched as she ran her gloved hands over the injuries. "These aren't natural wounds," she said in a tight voice. "Look at these lacerations. These are from steel snare traps." Jack clenched his jaw. Poachers. Somehow this bear had been caught, likely for days, before managing to break free. The metal wires had sliced deep into its flesh, some areas already showing signs of infection and necrosis. But that wasn't the most shocking part. Dr. Turner was examining one of the bear's deeper wounds when his fingers brushed against something unusual, something solid beneath the torn flesh. His eyes widened. "I need forceps, now." Emily handed him a pair, and carefully Turner reached into the wound, extracting a small metallic object coated in dried blood. Lisa gasped. "Is that a microchip?" Turner wiped the device clean, his heart pounding. "This isn't just any bear." He turned the microchip over, revealing a faded identification code. Morgan's eyes darted between the device and the massive animal lying before them. Then, suddenly, recognition dawned on her face. "Oh my God," she whispered. Jack frowned. "What?" Lisa looked up, her expression one of pure shock. "I think I've seen this tag before," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. 15 years ago, when this bear was a cub. A bear like no other." Silence fell over the team as they absorbed the implications of what Lisa had just said. 15 years ago, this bear had been tagged and studied, likely as part of a research project. It had grown up within range of the ranger station, meaning it had seen humans before. It had watched them. It had remembered them. And now, when it was at its weakest, it had somehow chosen to come back. Turner exhaled slowly, the weight of the revelation sinking in. This bear, it knew where to go. Jack shook his head in disbelief. "You're saying it remembered us? After all these years?" Lisa nodded, her eyes never leaving the bear's face. "Yes," she said softly, "and not just that. It knew we could help. This wasn't just an injured grizzly. This was Kodiak. And his story was only just beginning." The weight of the moment settled over the team like the heavy winter sky. The grizzly they had just sedated wasn't just any bear. It was Kodiak, a bear they had once tagged as a cub 15 years ago. A bear that had somehow remembered this place, these people, and had deliberately sought them out in its time of need. Dr. Lisa Morgan's mind raced as she carefully examined the faded identification number on the microchip. She had been fresh out of graduate school when she participated in a research project tracking bear migration patterns in this very region. The study had involved tagging several bear cubs, hoping to learn more about their movement, survival rates, and behavioral patterns. She had never imagined that one of those cubs would grow up to do something like this. Jack Reynolds exhaled sharply, rubbing a gloved hand over his face. "I've been working this park for over 20 years, he muttered, "and I've never seen anything like this. A bear seeking out humans? It defies everything we thought we knew." Dr. Samuel Turner, still kneeling beside Kodiak's massive body, was focused on the bear's vitals. "Well, we better figure it out fast," he said grimly. "Because if this bear traveled over 15 miles with wounds like these, we need to understand why before it's too late." An unbelievable journey. As the rescue team worked, a team of rangers followed Kodiak's bloody trail backward through the snow, hoping to piece together his journey. The results left them speechless. Kodiak had covered at least 15 miles, dragging his injured body through deep snow and subzero temperatures. More incredibly, he had taken a direct route to the ranger station, using clearings, ridges, and paths that led straight to the only place where humans could help him. Emily Carter, who had spent years tracking wildlife movement, shook her head in disbelief. "This wasn't random wandering," she murmured. "Kodiak knew where he was going. He planned this. It was unprecedented." Bears had strong memories. Research had proven that before. They could remember food sources, safe dens, and the locations of rivers or trails. But this was something else entirely. Kodiak wasn't just remembering a location. He was remembering who was there and what they could do. A breakthrough in animal intelligence. The realization sent shockwaves through the team. If Kodiak truly understood that the rangers were a source of help, what did that mean for everything they knew about wild animals? Lisa Morgan turned to Dr. Turner, her voice barely above a whisper. "We've studied animal intelligence for years, but we've always assumed their memories were tied to survival instincts. Where to find food, where to hibernate?" Turner nodded, still monitoring the bear's breathing. "But Kodiak is proving something much bigger. he murmured. "He's showing us that some animals might have the capacity for long-term recognition and decision-making." Lisa swallowed hard. What if we've been underestimating them this whole time? The idea was staggering. If Kodiak had truly chosen to seek out humans, it suggested a level of awareness and problem-solving that had never been documented in grizzlies before. It challenged everything they thought they knew about wildlife behavior. It also meant something even more profound. Kodiak had trusted them. In a world where wild animals were taught to fear and avoid humans at all costs, this bear had made a conscious choice to turn toward them instead. That kind of trust was rare, it was astonishing, and it made them wonder what else had Kodiak learned. The urgent battle to save Kodiak. As night began to fall, the team worked tirelessly to stabilize Kodiak. His wounds were severe, his body weakened from infection, but his vitals were holding steady. Dr. Turner cleaned the deep lacerations, his hands steady but his mind racing. "We need to get him to the wildlife facility," he said firmly. "We can't treat wounds this severe in the field." Lisa nodded, already on the radio, arranging for emergency transport. "If he's come this far," she said, glancing down at Kodiak's massive form, "we owe it to him to see this through." Jack Reynolds, still trying to process everything, looked at the unconscious bear and exhaled. "You're one hell of a survivor, Kodiak," he muttered. Little did they know, his story was far from over. The rescue team worked through the freezing night, their breath fogging in the frigid air as they carefully lifted Kodiak onto a makeshift transport sled. Even in his weakened state, the bear was an imposing figure, over 800 pounds of raw muscle and power. Yet, at this moment, he was vulnerable, utterly dependent on the humans he had sought out. Jack Reynolds stood back, watching as the team secured him. "I still can't believe this," he muttered. "A grizzly that remembers humans. That trusts us?" Dr. Lisa Morgan adjusted the straps securing Kodiak. "Not just trust," she corrected. "He made a choice to come to us. That changes everything we thought we knew about bears." The snow was falling heavier now, swirling in the dim headlights of the ranger trucks. Time was critical. The team needed to move fast if they were going to save Kodiak's life. The race against time. The emergency transport took 3 hours, navigating treacherous roads through the snow-covered wilderness to the nearest wildlife rehabilitation center. Inside the facility, Dr. Samuel Turner and his team were already preparing for what would be the most challenging case of their careers. The moment Kodiak arrived, they went to work. His body temperature was dangerously low. His wounds, still bleeding, needed immediate treatment. The infection from the steel trap injuries was spreading fast. Every second counted. As Turner and his team worked, something became immediately apparent. Kodiak was not like other bears. Signs of unusual intelligence. Most wild animals, when injured, react out of instinct, fighting, thrashing, or shutting down entirely. But Kodiak was different. Even as the team worked around him, he remained unnaturally calm. When they touched his injuries, he didn't flinch. When they moved around him, his eyes followed, not in fear, but in recognition. When they whispered reassurances, his breathing slowed, as if he understood their intentions. Dr. Turner noticed it first. "This bear is aware," he murmured, glancing at Lisa Morgan. "He's not just surviving, he's participating in his own recovery." Lisa took a deep breath, watching Kodiak closely. "It's not just awareness," she said softly. "It's trust." Trust, a word rarely, if ever, associated with wild grizzlies. And yet here was Kodiak, the bear who had traveled miles in excruciating pain, choosing to put his fate in human hands. A startling discovery. As the team worked late into the night, another revelation sent shockwaves through the room. Blood tests from Kodiak revealed something never before seen in grizzlies. His immune system was producing a unique type of antibody that was aggressively fighting off infection. Turner stared at the test results in disbelief. This isn't normal." Lisa frowned. "What are we looking at?" Turner turned to her, his voice laced with awe. His body is healing faster than it should be. These antibodies, they're attacking the infection at an unprecedented rate. Lisa's eyes widened. You're saying Kodiak's blood could be the key to understanding how some animals survive fatal wounds? Turner nodded. If we can study this further, we might be looking at something groundbreaking, not just for bears, but for medical science. The bear who wouldn't give up. As dawn broke, Kodiak stirred. His massive body shifted slightly on the medical table, his eyes slowly opening. The room went silent. Jack Reynolds stepped forward cautiously. Is he? Lisa nodded. He's waking up. But what happened next stunned everyone. Kodiak didn't panic. He didn't thrash or growl. Instead, he lifted his head slightly, his gaze meeting Lisa's. Steady, calm, and full of something that looked eerily like understanding. Lisa swallowed hard. He recognizes us. Jack exhaled. I don't believe this. But Lisa did, because Kodiak wasn't just any bear. He was extraordinary, and what he did next would change everything they thought they knew about wildlife. The moment Kodiak opened his eyes, the room fell into a stunned silence. Most bears, when coming out of sedation, react with confusion or aggression, a fight-or-flight response embedded deep within their survival instincts. But Kodiak did neither. Instead, he lifted his head slightly and locked eyes with Dr. Lisa Morgan. There was no fear in his gaze, no wild, panicked thrashing, just recognition. It was as if he understood exactly where he was, and more incredibly, he understood who was trying to help him. A bear like no other. Dr. Samuel Turner, the head veterinarian, was watching Kodiak closely, noting every detail. I've sedated countless wild animals, he murmured, but I've never seen one wake up this aware. Lisa swallowed hard, still holding Kodiak's gaze. He's not just surviving, she whispered. He's thinking. Then, something even more unbelievable happened. As Turner moved in to inspect the bear's injured paw, Kodiak did something no one expected. He lifted his paw toward the vet, as if offering it to be treated. A collective gasp filled the room. Turner froze, his hand hovering just inches away from Kodiak's massive limb. Did he just... Lisa nodded slowly, her voice barely above a whisper. He's helping us. It was a moment that defied everything they had ever known about bear behavior. An unprecedented level of trust. Over the next few days, Kodiak continued to shock and amaze everyone at the rehabilitation center. When the team approached with medicine, he stayed still, allowing them to treat him without sedation. When Lisa used hand signals to guide his movements, he followed, turning his body when needed, lifting his injured leg for bandaging. When Dr. Turner checked his wounds, Kodiak responded to their touch, flinching slightly if something hurt, but never reacting aggressively. Jack Reynolds, the veteran ranger, shook his head in disbelief. I've seen trained animals behave like this, but a wild grizzly? This shouldn't be possible. But it was happening right in front of their eyes. Kodiak wasn't just recovering, he was communicating. The scientific breakthrough. As Kodiak's treatment progressed, Lisa and Turner dug deeper into what made this bear so different. They reviewed Kodiak's past, searching for clues, and what they found shook the scientific community. Kodiak had been exposed to humans at a young age when he was first tagged as a cub near the ranger station. He had observed human behavior for years, possibly connecting rangers with safety and aid. His memory was remarkable, allowing him to retrace his steps to the one place where he knew he could find help. But the biggest discovery came from his brain activity scans. Lisa gasped as she reviewed the results. His neurological responses are off the charts. Turner's eyes widened. You're saying this bear is thinking on a level we never imagined? Lisa nodded. Not just thinking, problem solving. Kodiak had made a conscious decision to seek human help, a groundbreaking revelation that could change everything scientists thought they knew about wildlife intelligence. the camera footage that changed everything. As the world watched Kodiak's recovery unfold, rangers reviewed trail camera footage from the days leading up to his arrival at the station. What they found left them speechless. Kodiak's journey hadn't just been about saving himself. Days before he arrived at the ranger station, cameras captured him leading another injured bear, a younger female, to a safe water source. Even while suffering, Kodiak had helped another bear survive. Lisa's hands trembled as she watched the footage. "Bears aren't supposed to do this," she whispered. Turner exhaled. "Then we've clearly underestimated them." Kodiak wasn't just smart, he was compassionate, and the world was about to see just how much more he had to teach them.